Welcome into the Blurred Wire, where today we are discussing Godzilla Minus One. I've been needing to do this podcast for a while because my best friend convinced me that I needed to go see it in theaters. And in fact, I have my best friend with me on the podcast for this episode
I'm here to convince not only him, but everyone in the world to go see this movie.
because it was that good, that
It is
incredible.
that good. But you don't need me to tell you that. Everybody knows how great this movie is.
It's up for one Oscar or a couple of Oscars. I know it's at
Oh,
least for up for one. I think it's
is
for special effects,
oh
or it might
man,
be sound design.
it deserves it. If it is, it deserves a Best Picture nomination. I
Yeah.
don't care if that's a hot take or whatever. This movie is my movie of last year. Zilla -1.
All right. So Godzilla minus one. We'll talk about how great it is, kind of compare it to some of the other, because Godzilla's obviously been in a lot of movies and a lot of films. And we're going to see him again pretty soon at the end of March. So we'll talk about how Godzilla minus one affects all of this. But first, to get started, what is your favorite part about Godzilla minus one? Like, what moves the needle for you to make this such an incredible experience?
I think this movie very perfectly captures the blend of it being a monster movie as
Hmm.
well as a character driven drama.
Yeah.
And it marries um those different types of movies into this perfect blend because like you said, Godzilla has a massive history, mostly the Toho Godzilla, but then even the Hollywood Godzilla
Yeah. Yeah.
has a massive movie history, and I don't think like ever before I've seen such a poignant drama come out of a monster flick while it's still being a very entertaining monster movie. To be able to do both so well, I think is what sets Godzilla minus one apart.
And I was trying to think a lot about like why that kind of set this one apart and why it was so great despite because like when you think about like when I think about Godzilla movies, I'm not like I didn't go see 2014's Godzilla because I
Mhm,
wanted to see the story that Aaron Taylor Johnson and Elizabeth Olsen were gonna have. I went to
mhm,
go see it because I wanted to see Godzilla destroying stuff and
mhm.
fighting other monsters, which is exactly what we got. But I think the interesting decision was because in Hollywood, a lot of times, I won't say they like try to romanticize Godzilla, but at least like in the last few MonsterVerse movies, you've kind of been like rooting for Godzilla almost. Like, they're trying to figure him out, he's trying to figure them out, and then he's got to go fight some even bigger threat than Godzilla. And I think
Mhm.
what helped keep Godzilla minus one such a good story is by just no, Godzilla is the villain here. He is destroying innocent people and destroying like innocent property, and he is what we are trying to defeat. So you didn't have another monster. You didn't have all you had was Godzilla and these people who were absolutely terrified of him.
Yes, I think Godzilla is many different things in many different movies. In those Hollywood movies, he's more of the main character in that he is defending the Earth or Tokyo from other massive threats that
Yeah,
could destroy it. But in a lot of the Toho Godzilla movies, he is this like godlike mythical being. He is this protector at times from like outer space threats in very campy ways, but at the same
yeah,
time he's also this like hurricane, this like wrathful, like destructive force that isn't necessarily evil. It just is and it
yeah,
exists. And how do we deal with it? And this absolutely is the kind of Godzilla that we see here, but specifically with the political commentary that comes along with it,
yeah,
because this was a period piece, and you can't remove this Godzilla from World War II and the effects of the nuclear bombs being dropped on Japan at the time. And this movie does not shy away with it. I feel like other Toho classics have played with that idea before, but this is the first period piece that we've had of a
Do you,
Godzilla movie.
yeah, and do you feel like because when those early Toho movies were still so close to it, because like when it came out in the 1950s, I mean, that was just maybe almost a decade ago or around then for
So
having to deal with that. Yeah.
it's very interesting because minus one made me go back and watch the very first Godzilla for the first time. I'd
Hmm.
never seen it, and I was so inspired and I was so into Godzilla that I wanted to see every single movie that this guy has been in. And
Yeah.
so I went back and I watched the first one, and it's incredible how many similarities there are between those two movies. In a sense, it feels like minus one is almost like a reimagining of the very first Godzilla. Because absolutely Godzilla in the very first one is this like response to America dropping nuclear weapons on Japan and the ramifications and the dealings. How do you go from here?
Yeah. How can I don't want to say the word evolve, but like where do we go next? Having
Hmm.
all this decimation around us. And it's
Hmm.
like, and if that wasn't bad enough, now you've got this crazy monster coming out of the ocean that's decimating everything while we're trying to rebuild. And
Yeah,
so, like I said, I
literally,
think,
that's the origin of the name. The director, he said minus one. After the bombs, Japan was brought to zero, and then Godzilla appears, and now Japan has been brought to minus one.
oh man, I don't think
That's
I realized.
that's why it's called minus one.
Hmm. Yeah, and I mean that's accurate because that's exactly what happened. And I
Hmm.
think like it was really interesting seeing it like the part of the story that, developed was I mean, part of the story that I feel like I connected to was this guy who was, just trying to make a wage. And like, so the job that they had of like, destroying the mines out in the ocean, which is what he did to kind of make a living, because it was riskier, you know, you had a chance of dying and being blown to bits, it paid very well. And so just
Hmm.
like imagining, your country is so war torn that you have to take a job where your life is literally on the line every single day so you can make a living and care for this woman and this baby that you don't know at all.
Hmm.
And I kind of like the dynamic between them because it was like at first, he didn't really want to like take them in because like he doesn't know them at all, but she's like, you don't really have a choice. This baby has nowhere to go. There's a place here. We're staying here. And it's so like I said, it feels almost weird for me to be like, wow, the best part of this Godzilla movie was the story.
Was the story. Hmm.
You don't say that about Godzilla movies, but it really was.
I love that it kind of asks this question of, okay, how do we get back to any kind of normalcy? What do we do
Mhm.
now that there's this giant creature? Now that we've been ravished by war and we've been hurt so deeply, how do we build? And I love that the movie's answer to that is community on
Mhm.
the small scale of our protagonist taking in a woman who needs shelter for with a baby that's not even hers,
Exactly.
taking them in and creating this found family that they have together, all the way to the residents, their answer to how to take on Godzilla is through community. There's that whole scene where they're trying to get ex-servicemen to please, we need all hands on deck. No, you're not obligated to, but there's no way that any of us can make out of here alone or by ourselves. And it's through everybody, the community coming together to form this organized group to be able to take on Godzilla. That's the thing that succeeds. And it's so beautifully woven into
Mhm.
the uh the motivation for all of our characters, that sense of belonging and purpose, even down to our protagonist trying to find or excuse me, for community being the answer for his reason to live, his
Yeah.
reason to forgive himself and to move past this trauma that he has experienced.
And I think you really hit the nail on the head on how like the central theme of this movie was community and coming together after a tragedy, during a tragedy, and to overcome a tragedy.
Mhm.
Because, like, I was like, when a climax of a movie, you're supposed to get excited. And usually in a Godzilla movie, it's like, yeah, yeah, put him down. Yeah, yeah, destroy that Muto. But the
Mhm.
exciting part, the most exciting part of this whole movie where I felt like, like heart swell was when they were trying to defeat Godzilla with these bombs and things. Like, because it was like they were like using pressure sensors to try to send him down really quick and give him like those the bubbles that you get in your lungs when you come up too fast. I can't think
Right.
of the exact word for it, but like it's on the top of my tongue. But then they needed some help to pull because they didn't have enough strength. And then you see all these tugboats coming in and pulling alongside and helping to make it happen. And like I didn't really expect them all to come in, but when they did, it kind of reminds me like this is what they wanted when we had Star Wars: The Last Jedi in 20 not The Last Jedi, The Rise of Skywalker in 2019 when Lando and Chewie came in with all those normal people and they
Mhm.
just kind of destroyed all the first order troops, the final order troops and everything. And it's
Yeah.
like that fell so flat. It didn't
Yeah.
do anything. And you could tell the response that they wanted from that was what we got in Godzilla minus one. That community
Sh-
feeling because
Yeah.
we felt like we were a part of the community. We understood what they were going through. And I feel and seeing all these people rally around this mission allowed like that's part of the catalyst that made that guy realize this is bigger than myself. I don't need to sacrifice myself to defeat Godzilla. Because his whole plan the entire time after he lost, the woman that wasn't even his wife, after he lost
Right.
her, he's like, I'm gonna kill myself to kill Godzilla. Like that's my only purpose. And seeing them come out with all those boats and all that community coming together to help, I feel like that was the catalyst to make him decide, oh wow, this is bigger than me. I need to stay alive so we can see this through.
I think, yeah, absolutely. I really like that comparison too of how, how community, trying to build a community for a final assault
Mm-hmm.
kind of ending to a movie. We've seen it fail and how well it succeeds here. And I think that that ties in with the ending because I love I don't normally enjoy the fake outs endings of a character who had passed away is no longer actually dead.
Yeah,
Surprise, but it feels so earned. I
it really
was I
does.
I was in tears by the end of this movie, so happy that Noriko had survived and that
Yeah,
they were able to it felt so earned because that felt at its core what this movie was. It was about those relationships. Godzilla's there, but Godzilla is the thing that the characters deal with. It's not the point. It's never Godzilla. It's what do we do about it?
and I think
And
it's go ahead.
I was just gonna say I also really appreciate the scene where he presses the eject button at the
Mm-hmm.
last minute. I think for myself watching it, I totally thought they were gonna do the thing where um who I'm looking up the engineer's name.
Oh,
Um,
I can't remember,
have remembered.
but I know he
Uh,
was the one that
talk.
put the ejector seat in there.
I totally thought that we were gonna do a fake out, and he told them this removes the detonator switch, and I thought he was actually telling him what the ejection button was, so that Shikamisha um would be able to eject. But the fact that he forgave him and he told him, you don't deserve death. You don't need to die. It was so powerful and it gave a protagonist agency and it allowed him to make that decision, not
Yep.
because he was tricked into it because other people felt he should live, but because he felt he had found that reason to live himself.
Mm-hmm.
That I love that so much.
And like it all worked so well because it's like if you think about it, like if we had known that she wasn't dead, before he
Hmm.
decided not to sacrifice his life, it wouldn't have meant as much because the whole point of him wanting to kill himself was because he felt so bad that she sacrificed her life for him. So if he knew she was alive, then it wouldn't have hit as hard for him deciding, no, I'm still going to stay alive. So for him to
Hmm.
decide, I'm going to stay alive, and then he got to see her after, that's the part that really made it so powerful because he found a different reason besides her to stay alive, and then he still got to be with her. And I feel
Hmm.
like that part, I feel like I'm trying to think like even if he was like if she was his wife or his girlfriend or they had any like if they weren't just strangers, I feel like that her coming back would have felt cheesy. But just because it was this situation where they were strangers and she just said, "Here's a baby you don't know. I'm living with you now." Like that relationship and seeing it blossom, I feel like that's why it's okay for her to come back. Like that's why we weren't like, oh wow, that's cheesy that she's back. It was like, oh my God, thank God she's back. So now we can see them, their relationship grow and him get a chance to marry her like he wanted to.
Hmm. Yeah, I really appreciate the happy ending
Hmm.
that we got from it all. It felt well earned and well baked into the message behind the movie.
Yeah.
And I will say that's something that I appreciated watching the original Godzilla. Um, I'm no film historian, but I think that's something that could really be gained and changed by tackling a similar thematic footing, but in a new way. Because I feel like that's something that was really expanded upon from the original that we got to see here in minus
Yeah.
one.
And this is the first time I've like, I'm the kind of guy like on Netflix. If it's not in English, I'm skipping because I mean I don't really watch foreign films very often. So when you were
Hmm.
like, "Hey man, you got to go see Godzilla minus one," I was like, "Oh, I didn't know they made another Godzilla movie. Like I didn't know the MonsterVerse made." And you were like, "Oh no, it's not MonsterVerse." And I'm like, "Oh, was it like another studio?" And you was like, "No, like it's from Toho from Japan." And I was like, "So they're gonna be talking Japanese the whole time? Like I'm gonna have to read subtitles?" It's like that's not a
Hmm.
movie.
You got to
That's a
read.
I'm reading a book. Like this what?
You
I
got to
don't
read a
do
book,
that.
buddy. I'm sorry.
But it was so incredibly worth it and probably one of the best movies I saw all last year. And
Hmm.
like, it's I won't say it's sad because it's different. American filmmakers are still trying to make movies, but again, it's like when you have a movie that's not even in our home language and it's so much better than all these other ones, it's kind of like what are you doing? Like if it was so good to us here in America, imagine how good it was to people in Japan. Because when you understand the language, of course, you connect on a deeper level to everything that's going on.
Hmm. I think this is definitely a movie that could have only come from Japan. It offers
Good
a
point.
perspective that just or at the very least requires a Japanese filmmaker to be able to tell this story.
Yeah,
And the fact that they did it that works as well as actually, you know what? Let's take a moment to talk about the action of it because I feel like we've talked about how we feel about
story.
the emotional, ties to this movie and the story, but it works just as an action flick. The opening sequence when we're on the island and Godzilla feels like this terrifying force in the middle of the night, somehow stealthy and sneaky as it steps upon the island and it's lit up by the machine gun fire and the explosions. It felt like a scene out of like Jurassic Park. It like a terrifying dino.
And it's like the graphics were so good. And the
Mhm.
budget was like 15 million. And you
Mhm.
compare that to 200, $300 million Hollywood movies, and Godzilla looked just as good in this movie,
Mhm.
if not
If not
better,
better than
some
than
of the
some
other
other
ones. The
movies that come out today.
not even quadruple the budget. This is like exponential the budget. And yeah, the action scene, especially when he was destroying the buildings in that train scene where like she was trying to
Yes.
escape off the train, it's
Yes.
like your heart was pounding with the action. And I think it was a different kind of heart stopping kind of action because it was like again, we're used to the action is Godzilla versus King Ghidorah or the Mutos or even King Kong. And that's usually the action that we're accustomed to. But seeing the action of just humans just trying to stay alive, it was exhilarating. And then, like I said, to me,
Absolutely.
my favorite scene of the whole movie was watching them come together and enact this plan to try and defeat Godzilla. And like that action scene, like it's you could put it right up there with anything in the MonsterVerse, and it
It
holds its own, if not surpasses.
it was so tense, and the charge up, a good Godzilla movie has this scene where he's charging up for almost like a video game like super,
Yep.
like he's charging up this atomic blast, and it felt like it shook the theater when it
Mhm.
when I first saw it, with his tail fins like glowing and
Yep.
dislodging, and then like this giant blue nuclear beam. So cool.
Uh,
So impressive.
Godzilla just used hyper beam or something like that.
Yeah.
And I think like and the look of terror on their faces because it's like okay, you already have this monster that's, 60 stories tall destroying everything. You're telling me he shoots a beam of destructive energy from his mouth? Like if the size and destroying everything wasn't enough, he can also vaporize you with his breath. Like
Mhm.
seeing the way people looked up at it, like this is not real. Like this is absolutely insane. Was all just part of the magic.
Absolutely. No, this is um I haven't made my way through all Godzilla movies yet. I'm very early on in my
Uh-huh.
look back, but so far from what I have watched, this is easily my favorite that I've seen.
Yeah.
And Takashi Yamazaki, the director of this movie,
Hmm.
deserves every Academy Award that they are
Yeah.
that they are nominated for. I really hope he seems very thrilled from everything I've seen on social media. He and the team behind this movie are so thrilled with the way it came out and the reception. It really feels like it was a movie built from passion and people that love this iconic
Yep.
character and just wanted to make this phenomenal movie, and they did. And it's
And,
so great to see a movie win like this.
right? And it's like I just hope that everyone that worked on this movie, like based upon the budget and based upon how much it ended up grossing, which was more like I don't even know like how much did let me look up how much it
Yeah, let's
grossed.
get some.
It says it grossed 1 billion in the Japanese market. That is insane.
1 billion with a B.
1 billion and 56 million in the US. Now I don't know if that's I think that's in it was 14, I think that's in Japanese currency, so I think it's like 96
Oh,
million US dollars.
1 billion yen.
Yen, yeah, yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah. I was
Okay.
like, oh, I think we hear more about it if it was like a billion US
A
dollars. Yeah.
billion, the single highest
Yeah.
grossing film of all time.
Yeah. Okay, so it was like, yeah, so I just hope everybody that worked on that film gets an appropriate bonus for all their hard work down to the, grip guys that were holding the cameras because I feel like that's the kind of film where every single cast person had an impact in making it this phenomenal.
Hmm. And I hope whatever everyone that worked on this, I hope they all get to work on whatever they're passionate about next. Because
Yeah.
my God, if they can put their passion into something like they did here, it's going to be phenomenal.
And it feels like if we ever get a sequel to this based upon them, like based upon the story that we got in this movie, like I'm ready to see, okay, maybe you want Godzilla to fight King Ghidorah in the second one, or a Muto, or, maybe save King Kong for later. But like if they want Godzilla to fight another monster, do it. Because you have such a concrete story in place that now you can build up from that.
Bring back Son of Godzilla. Godzilla had a child. Let's bring him back.
Oh God.
I
Oh
can't wait.
God.
I can't wait to see. I can't wait to see Son of Godzilla.
Imagine Godzilla and then his little baby Godzilla comes in like, oh man.
if you've never look up when you get a chance, Baby Godzilla or Godzilla's son. Um, he's so freaky looking.
I'll have to check it out. And I mean, I guess like, and again, the movie in March, A New Empire. I guess we're gonna see like King Kong's son, the little, or
Mhm.
like I guess it's the evil Kong's son with like the little monkey that was.
I'll be honest, I got no clue. I forgot the lore of the MonsterVerse movies. I didn't know like is
Yeah.
Hollow Earth theory real in the MonsterVerse? Because they went underground and there's
If you
giant apes.
if you get a chance, I would watch Monarch Legacy of Monsters on Apple TV because
Oh,
it does a
right.
good job of slowing everything down and kind of explaining all the lore. Because like they wanted to build a monster verse, but it's like the connection. Because like in order to build out the universe, usually you use the same actors, and like they kind of did, but not really. Because it's supposed to be like Godzilla, and then Kong Skull Island, and then Godzilla King of the Monsters, and then they had Godzilla versus Kong, and now it's Godzilla and Kong, A New Empire. And it doesn't really feel like a whole like universe, monsterverse, but like I said, we go to those movies to see the monsters fighting and blowing up stuff.
Yeah.
And it sounds like we're gonna get a lot of
Like
that in this new one.
there's a King Kong's got an infinity gauntlet, and the other ape
Yep.
had like a whip and whipped the top of a building at King Kong or Godzilla. It's gonna be
Yep.
phenomenal. It's gonna be fantastic for just stupid fight
Action. Yeah.
scenes. Yeah.
And so I think that's my question that I want to ask you, like to leave off. Do you think that Godzilla minus one is going to help this movie, as in like the renewed interest in Godzilla because it did so well and was received so well? It'll make people want to go see this new one? Or do you think it's going to end up hurting it because people are going to see this one as a disappointment compared to the depth that we got of minus one?
Ooh, see, I don't think Godzilla is so like culturally. I feel like it's beyond just the Toho interpretations because I went so long of my own life like learning about Godzilla, like from the 2003, like the Hollywood Godzilla.
Hmm.
That's the kind of Godzilla I grew up on. I didn't know anything about Toho or
Yeah.
classic Godzilla films, so I don't think it really needs it. I think most people will think of them as two very different things.
So it won't even affect, like it'll be like a different universe, like kind of
I
like
think
Sony versus Marvel, like the MCU, like they just will be separated.
I think they're both so unapologetically different, and
Hmm.
they neither tries to be like in the other's market. Like minus
Yeah.
one is not trying to be this like junk food action fest of CGI monsters, and King of the Monsters is not going to be like a serious World War II era drama.
Yeah, depth
So
story. So yeah, good point.
so
Yeah.
I don't think they're gonna have much effect on each other, aside
Okay.
from people who just want to see big lizards.
I think the people, yeah, I see what you mean. I think the people will know exactly what they're getting with the new Empire, and the ones that this is what they want to see, that's what they will get. And I think from the trailers, like if you want to see a drama akin to minus one, you'll look at the trailers and know that is not what
Not
Godzilla
at
and Kong
all
is.
what it's right.
No, 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 no. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I'm still gonna go see Godzilla and Kong: A New Empire because, like I said, got to see what he does with that Infinity Gauntlet. Um,
Absolutely.
but I guess any more closing thoughts on Godzilla minus one besides like there's a black and white version out right now, so if you missed it in theaters, by all means go see it because
Oh,
it
please,
truly is phenomenal.
please watch a very funnily titled movie, Godzilla minus one minus color.
Yes,
is how
yes,
it's
I saw that too.
advertised. I
Oh,
I
that's
love
so
that. I
funny.
wish more black and white movies were called minus color.
Yeah.
That's a funny way to put it.
Hmm.
But no, please, I just want everyone in the world to go see this movie and see like the beauty of this artistic craft put to use.
I couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. All right. Well, I guess that's it for us today on the Blurred Wire, talking about Godzilla minus one. And we'll catch you guys next time as we continue delving through movies, ones that we like and ones that we don't like so much. So Until next time.
Until next time.